Introduction to weighted voting systems. Alright, weighted voting systems are any voting arrangement in which the voters are not necessarily equal in terms of the number of votes they control. So think of a board or a committee that controls a major corporation. Everyone has a say, but it's not always an equal say. Some people's power or amount of votes is higher than others. And a motion is a vote with only two choices. So usually that's going to be just yes or no. Next we have the players. So the players are the voters in a weighted system characterized just by P with a subscript. So player 1, player 2, and so forth. The weights, they're the number of votes controlled by each player. Okay, so they're going to correlate with the player. So weight 1 will go with player 1. And adding the weights gives the total number of votes in the system. The quota is the minimum number of votes needed to pass the motion. Okay, so and this is characterized by Q, and not always, but usually greater than half, or 50%, and less than the total number of votes. And the next couple slides we're going to look at some scenarios where this is not true, but usually this is what we want in a weighted voting system. Okay, a weighted voting system takes this form. So we have everything's in brackets, and we have the quota listed first, followed by a colon, and then we have the weights listed in order. So the weights are going to represent the players. So for example, weight 1 is the weight of player 1, and weight 2 is the weight of player 2, and weight 3 represents how many votes player 3 has, and so on. Okay, and they're always listed from highest to lowest, so in descending order. Alright, so here's a few examples. The first one is where the quota is 2/3 of the total number of votes. So on the far left we have the number 14 that represents the amount of votes needed to pass a motion. And on the right, in descending order, we have the weights of the players. So 8 plus 7, 15 plus 3 is 18, plus 2 is 20. 14 out of 20 is not 2/3, so maybe we can change, if we just change the 3 to a 4, that would make this total 21. And then we have 14 out of 21, and yeah, that's about 2/3. Quota is too low, and we're going to call that anarchy. So notice that with anarchy, it's too easy for any group of players to pass a motion. So if player 1 and player 2, with weights 8 and 7 respectively, if they vote yes, they'll have 15 votes for yes, which will be enough to pass the motion because we only need 10. Also notice 8, so player 1 and player 3 could pass the motion by voting. Player 1 and player 4 could pass the motion, 8 plus 2 making 10. And player 2 and player 3 could also pass the motion. So there's too many possibilities here. It's too easy to pass the motion. Next, we have an example where the quota is too high, and that's going to be called gridlock. Okay, and you may have heard that saying before, where we're in gridlock. So when nothing can get done. Well, in this, nothing can get done. We can't pass a motion because we don't have enough votes. So our quota is 21, and we have 8 and 7, 15, 3 and 2. So the amount of votes here, the amount of votes here add up to 20. So it's literally impossible, even if everyone in the committee, for example, were to vote yes to pass some motion, to actually get it to pass, because we would need 21. The last one on this slide is called One Partner, One Vote, and also referred to as Unanimous. So this is when everyone in a committee needs to vote yes. So this is actually kind of like a trial or a jury when doing a court case. Everyone needs to vote the same way before it can be completely decided. So 8 and 7 make 15 plus, okay, another typo here. So if we just make that 1, alright, that should add up to 19. Actually, you know what? Let me erase that. No. Notice that here, 8 and 7 and 3, that makes up, oops, sorry. 8 and 7, 3, that's going to make up 18. Now, I know that 18 plus 2 is 20, and that's more than needed, but notice without player 4's vote of 2 votes, or a weight of 2, they're not going to have enough to pass. So in this case, even though we would go over a little bit, every player is needed. So that's really a better definition of this. It's not just when the total weight adds up to the quota, but when every single player is needed to pass the motion. The other example, this one's a lot easier, so just 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. We would need all of those votes to get to the quota to pass the motion. Alright, next, a dictator is a player whose weight is bigger than or equal to the quota. So, called a dictator because they pretty much control the game. Notice here that we only need 11 votes to pass a motion, and player 1 has 12, or a weight of 12, or 12 votes. So player 1 pretty much controls this. If they vote yes, they don't even need player 2 and player 3. If they vote no, player 2 and player 3 can't pass the motion by themselves. So pretty much player 1 has all the power here. Again, that's why we call them a dictator. A dummy is a player who has no power. So there's never a time when a dummy makes a difference in the outcome. And this one's not quite as obvious to see. So notice that in this example, we have a quota of 30 votes. Okay, so we need 30 to pass. If we have, let me write this out, player 1, player 2, and player 3, and player 4. Okay? If player 1 and 2 vote yes, but the others don't, that's not enough. But if player 1, 2, and 3 vote yes, that's enough to pass the motion. Yet this is the only way it can be passed, other than, well, if we do add player 4. So there's another 9, making that 39. So yeah, we could add player 4 to vote yes, but it doesn't really make a difference. And the real kicker here is, notice that when we, let's take that away for a minute. There's no other way that player 4 becomes helpful. So let's say that player 1 decides to vote no, but player 2 and 3 and 4 decide to vote yes. Well, that's only 29, and that's not enough. So in this case, there's no way that player 4 is necessary to make this vote pass. Alright, veto power. This occurs if a motion cannot pass unless a specific player votes in favor of the motion. Okay? And this is not to be confused with a dictator, okay? So for example, in this problem we have 12 as our quota, and player 1, player 2, player 3, and player 4. Okay? Now player 1 does have the most power here with 9 votes, but they cannot pass the motion alone. They need somebody else. However, notice that if player 1 does not vote yes, so let's say that player 1 votes no, and player 2, 3, and 4 all vote yes, 5 plus 4 plus 2, that's 11. That's not going to be enough. So it's critical that we have this player's vote. Okay, so again, they can't win it by themselves, but they are needed to pass the motion. Also notice the little formulas down here. So the weight of player 1 is less than the amount of quota. Okay, so we got two criteria that needs to be filled here. Also the total weight of the system. So 9 plus 5 is 14 plus 6 is 20. So 20 minus that player's weight should also be less than the quota itself. So 11 is less than 12. So both of those check out. So we can say that player 1 has veto power. Alright, so here's a few examples. These are just to see if you can identify the situation that's going on. So, and the first one, we have a quota of 7 votes needed. So notice that we have player 1, player 2, and player 3 here. And it's going to be pretty crucial that we have player 1, but they can't win it alone. So we can win with player 1 and player 2, because that would be 8. We could win with player 1 and player 3. But notice that we cannot win with just player 2 and player 3 alone. That would only be 5. So we're going to say that player 1 here, has veto power. Alright, next example. We got 4 is the quota, 3, 2, and 2. So, and this one, it looks like it's going to be too easy to pass. So either player 1, player 2, and player 3. Alright, so either player 1 and player 2 can pass the motion, either player 1 and 3 can do it, player 2 and player 3. So any combination of just 2 of them can pass this. This is too easy, so we're going to call this situation Anarchy. And the last one on this slide, our quota is 37, and we have a lot of players in this example, but if you add up the total weight of the system, all of this adds up to 36. So no matter how the vote goes, there's not enough to pass the motion. So this example is an example of gridlock. Okay, these are our last 3 examples. The one on top, so we have a quota of 15, and then we just have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 as the weight. So players, player 1, player 2, 3, 4, and 5. And this one, the total weight is 15 for that system. So this is definitely an example of unanimous. Oh gosh, it looks awful. Okay. Or one partner, one vote. So in this case, we everyone needs to vote yes. Everyone's vote is crucial for the motion to be passed. For the next one, we have the same thing. So we need all 5 of those to reach the quota of 5. So that one is also unanimous. And our very last example, we have a quota of 12. Notice that player 1 has more than the quota, okay, with 13. So we can already say that player 1 is a dictator. Okay, they control that game. They don't need anybody else. Also notice that no one else in the system, if well, the other group of players could not pass the motion even if they wanted to without player 1. So these all add up to only 11, so that's still not enough. Alright, so there you have it. That's just some of the basic vocab. In the next lesson, we'll talk about how to calculate the power indexes. So we're going to talk about what it really means numerically to have power.